everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Happy Friday. So my name is Iris Anson, and I'm the founder of Solely Original. For those of you who are new, Solely Original is a revolutionizing female footwear brand that allow you to design your own shoes using our 3D website, also with an option to have the shoes made to fit using our remote fitting technology. So we believe when the shoes are fitted, then the final product will be both stylish but also comfortable. So at today's live chat, I'm going to share with you some of the fitting challenges that we have seen people run into with off-the-shelf shoes. And I have been there myself before as well. When you go into a shoe shop, you try the shoes on, they feel okay. Somehow when you brought them home and start walking in them, and you get all sorts of problems popping up. So luckily, I don't have that problem anymore, given all my shoes now are fitted by our company solely. But I have been there before, and I know how important fitting is. And not only it causes discomfort on your foot, it can be very irritating if you have to kind of walk in agony all day. And it causes all sorts of foot problems like hammer toes and corns and bunion and some of these problems and can be quite permanent, and you'll have to live with them for the rest of your life. And not only foot, it could also affect your knees and backs because of your body posture and your sort of weight balance. And next week we actually have invited Marianne. So she's a celebrity pedestrian, and so if you are interested, tune in. This is Thursday evening, and I'm sure she will share more of these sort of common foot problems and how you can take care of your foot sort of medically. So for today, I thought before I go into some of the fitting problems, I can share with you some of the basic sort of shoemaking and shoe structure kind of knowledge, and hopefully will make it easier later for me to kind of talk about the fitting. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see some of the shoe making steps a bit better. Just bear with me. Okay, so shoemaking is a very, very complicated process, and depending on the design style, that I could have, somewhere between 100 to 150 separate operations in shoemaking. And to start with, once you've selected your material for upper and lining, then you cut them into different patterns, to fit your design. And once that's done, then you stitch them together. In between the upper and the lining, you can find another layer of material called counter. So you mainly find them in your toe box and also the back. They're there mainly to kind of retain the shoe shape, so then give you the necessary room, for example, in the toe box, to freedom to move, but also on the back to kind of stabilize your heel while you're walking. But while we're on the subject, you can have different sort of strength and like you can have like hard, medium, soft kind of counter, or you could even find some shoes don't have counter at all. Depending on the design, you can just give it a little bit of like unstructured look. But having it there could also cause some of the fitting problem, which I will touch on a bit later. Right, so once you've got the upper sort of stitched together and ready, then you will mold them over on this shoe last, which I have in my hand. If you can see, The shoe shape and fit is will be determined by the shoe last. Again, I will come back to this a little bit later because this is very important. It's the sole of your shoes. So coming back to the shoemaking process, then once you've molded this over the shoe last, you can then attach the insole, midsole, and outsole. And then in the end, the heel, then we have also the polishing, the packaging in the end before we send the shoes out. In terms of the structure of the shoes, I just want to point out one thing here, which is called shank, and it's the you can have different sort of curve, as you can see on our screen. So this one has got really quite steep curve, and so you can't have two completely the same sort of design and size shoes, but with different sort of shank curve, having a steeper shank curve would make your foot look smaller and more elegant, but be very careful. It also redistributes your body weight to shift it forward onto the ball of your foot, which sort of takes away the weight-bearing function of your arch and then the heel, if that makes sense. So moving back to the shoe last, if you can see again, like this last in my hand, this is sort of very important, like I said, and usually in a footwear brand, and every factory has different sort of sets of standards for different sizes, so what happens is usually a factory would make up a sample shoe. Then they invite a foot model in. This foot model is supposed to have the most average foot shape. Just like one of our guest speakers who came in 2 weeks ago to talk about her experience helping factories to trial the shoes. And when she tried the shoes on, she would comment on how the shoes fit. Then the factory would adjust the last based on her comments. Then this process could be as little as 2 or 3 times, or as long as more than 10 times before they get this, average fits ready before they grade it up and down in different size for the mass production. So unluckily for those of you like just me, like we don't have the average foot shape. That's what we are here for as a bespoke shoemaker. We literally take your exact foot measurements and use your foot features to make these shoe last before we make your actual shoes. So that's a bit about the shoe last. And so moving on, the $1 million question is, when does a shoe actually fit? So a study has been done by this very prestigious research center a few years ago. They found, in general, there are 36 different factors that affect a shoe's fit. So some of the most, obvious factors like your foot measurements, shape of your foot, obviously the last. Then the your shoe style, the the kind of the cut of the patterns and also the way sort of the shoes been constructed, the way it's been made and put together. Also your own fitting sort of preference. Some people just prefer a little bit more snug, and some people prefer like to have a little bit of like sort of movement sort of space. And also you can have like sort of material difference based on what's been used to make shoes, and so you can have exactly two identical style and size shoes, but just because they were made in different material, then they fit and feel differently. And so shoemaking like can be very, very detailed, and every size has about sort of 6 to 7 millimeter difference. And just to give you a context, this is my measuring tape, and that's this tiny little bit of gap, and that's the kind of amount of details we have to work with in shoemaking. So in general, in a shoe store, the length quoted is based on the length. Obviously that's the length of your foot, but also the ball width, which is like the width of this full part of your foot. But really that's much more to it in terms of the fitting. How the shoe fit is about the volume distributed inside the shoe. So it's about all these slices of different surface, how they can distribute inside the shoe. So you can have two people have the same length and same width feet, but they fit completely differently for the same shoe, just because of all these areas I just mentioned. Maybe like the toes have a little bit need a little bit more height, or like shorter or longer toes, narrow heel, and your instep, and so all these sort of different surface on your foot would affect how your shoes fit. So when you go into trying a new pair of shoes, you might feel like sometimes that there's this like breaking process, that the shoe will gradually sort of mold the structure and the shape of your foot. So this process can be quite painful to some people, unluckily, but it sort of becomes a norm to a lot of people's lives. They feel like it's a necessary part that they have to go through. But in our view, these ill-fitting shoes can cause a lot of problems, like what I've just mentioned before, like hammer toes and things, and not only just uncomfortable to wear, but some of these problems will be irreversible. So it's down to you as the buyer to to decide what shoes and which shoe to buy, so I think we can go into a little bit more in depth of some of this like specific fitting problems. So I've got a shoe here I can show you. So mainly the shoe problems would lies around the toe area. Like I just said, you can have a difference of toe depth. Some people have more like sort of fleshier feet, and some people have more bony feet. And then you might have for standard shoes, and then you might have like too much room, or you might just not have enough room, so you feel your feet kind of like splitting out from the front, and then the toes kind of like crush onto your toes, especially if the shoe has the counter, like the stiffener sort of inside the upper, and so it could cause your like sort of ingrown nails and all kinds of problems. And so what you really need to watch out for is some of the shoe shape. I'm gonna share my screen again to show you this type of shoe that's really bad for your feet. Yeah, so here we are. So the toe shape can be receding shape where the end of your sort of toe tips kind of like sloping down and sort of putting pressure on your toes, and your feet will feel like this unnecessary pressure. And so this could be an indication of like that shoe style is wrong. It's not what you should be wearing, or maybe it's just the fact that this shoe length is not enough. You need to increase the shoe size. And if you look at the right image, which shows the front angle of the toes, where you see this like kind of sloping curve of the shoe toes, kind of like also put pressure on the edge of your big toe and also the little toe. Again, this is a sign that your shoes are just too shallow. It doesn't have enough depth in the toe box, could potentially cause problems long term. So moving back to my recommendation. If you really like that style of shoe, you could also try sort of stretching the shoes. Minor stretch tends to be okay. Just give you like sort of toes tiny little bit of more room to move, but do avoid major stretch. Because when you stretch the shoes, it might cause some sort of problems if it's not done correctly. For example, like you might have the seam sort of break open, or like you might eat into the margin of your sort of leather here, and to eventually also have like your sole kind of opens up, or like simply the leather might just kind of break if it's not made to stretch, you see. So another sort of recommendation is obviously to have shoes that are made in genuine leather, and obviously leather are much more stretchy and sort of give you the kind of elasticity needed, if it's just that millimeter difference. Okay, so you can have, going back to my slides, just want to quickly show you if you have hammer toes, which means your toes kind of curls up a little bit. There it is. Like this bottom right corner image show you this is what a toe might look like inside a shoe. So it curls up and it needs more depth in your toe box. So this could be caused by permanent damage of your previous sort of experience wearing ill-fitting shoes, cause you like this long-term damage on the toe that it just naturally curls up. And it could be also just temporary because of this particular shoe is too short. So you probably need to kind of like increase the size, in terms of lengthwise and also in terms of depth, just to give you a little bit more sort of toe box, space. And what else? And so obviously based on your toe shape, you could be suitable for different sort of toe shapes. And if you do have like quite wide, you know, the toe shape, then wearing sort of shoes that's too pointy would be just, you know, squeezing them all together that you can see from this image above, and that's what it would look like inside. And the thing is though, like you might think, oh, you know, I can put up with the pain, but the problem is, especially around the joint area, like, you know, some people have a little bit more prominent sort of big toe joints, and that would be mostly a cause of these narrow fitting shoes, because in between the joints, we have these sort of lubrication sort of fluid. It's there to protect your joints from severe pressure. And what happens is when you wear ill-fitting shoes for long term, then it causes your joint to inflame inside, and this doesn't go away easily. So over time, it builds up, and then cause your sort of bunion and big joints become bigger and bigger, and so it just becomes a cycle. Like it would cause more of your fitting problem for standard size shoes, and on top of that, so then it causes more sort of pain as well. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the angle and the length of your sort of toes as well. So as you can see this sort of bottom left image, like what I just said before, like you could have two people with the same sort of length and width, you know, feet, but they fit differently. You know, one of the reason is the toes are, you know, if you have like long toes, then what happens inside the shoe is that then it doesn't really sit on this the curve of the angle. If you're wearing high heels, then you don't get the correct support. And if you have like, you know, short toes, then it sort of run forward into the toe box and getting crushed. And so you need to be careful about this as well when you go shoe shopping. Oh, one other sort of suggestion is if you do have sort of going back to say a bunion problem, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can show you what I'm going to talk about. Right, okay. So if you do have a little bit more of a bunion, then be very careful about the neckline. So it's the edge of this shoe where it rests on your foot. So if it's not, you know, cut out properly, then this front could be like cutting into your, you know, your joint and putting more pressure on it to cause, you know, pain. So that's another one of my tip. Okay, so next, yes, so that's the main sort of problem area around the toes. And like I just said, the sides could also be problematic on everywhere around the sort of the neckline here. So you could have like, you know, the ankle bone area, like the edge coming up too high, that sort of cuts into your ankle bone. And on the back as well, if you can see, like this height is very important. Like, you know, it should be just sort of the right shape and also the right sort of height for you. Because if it's too high, it sort of bites into your heel tendon, and obviously cause sort of like a blister and sort of bleeding. And if it's too short, then you feel like the shoe just doesn't have enough sort of grip on your heel and just would easily slip off. So it's very, very important that you, when you try on a new pair of shoes, and have a good walk around and see whether they stay on. And so for us, we actually use memory foam. If you can see this, I saw from the screen, like we use this kind of memory foam as part of the built-in heel grip. So it's much softer on your heel, and it creates this like sort of millimeter sort of gap between your heel tenon and the shoe surface. The fact is, if you have the shoe with the counter inside it, it can be quite sort of hard, and the amount of rubbing while you walk, and so your foot sort of moves in this area, that would cause quite a lot of irritation. And so if it's too high, then what you could do is to put in like a insert, one of those like sort of gel inserts, to kind of raise up your heel, but just be careful not to raise up your heel too much. Then like I said, if it's too shallow, like doesn't have enough height here, it would like easily slip off on your heel as you walk. Okay, so what else? Oh yes, forgot to mention, if the heel counter is a little bit too hard, what you can do is maybe use a shoe horn or like a hammer to kind of just smooth out or soften the rim, and to make it a little bit easier, softer. But the truth is, you can't actually change the structure of the shoe, unfortunately. So what can you do? Just hopefully using these kind of like small tricks could reduce the pain if it's really causing you trouble. So this is pretty much it for open shoes. You could also have like problem for these deeper shoes. So I have like these lace-up shoes in my hand, as you can see. Some people have high arch. Arch is like this part of your foot just sort of curves up. So what happens is when you have high arch, it's very often accompanied by a high instep, which is here. This you might, if you run your finger through here, you might feel like a little bit of a bone structure sticking out. And so if you do have like high instep, then I would recommend wearing these sort of lace-up shoe, so then you can adjust how much of room that you want here. But you can also get those kind of like bootie that has a inside zip, and unfortunately for those type of shoes, you can't really control how high the instep is, and that might cut off your blood circulation, and you have to be very careful of wearing that type of shoes. Okay, so just looking at my notes and okay, moving on into the linings. Lining is also important in terms of preventing blisters, because for shoes like this, where you can see the pattern is like obviously stitched together, if the stitching is not done properly, when you run your finger through inside the shoe, you might feel some rough seams, and that could cause you blisters wherever that is, like in the toe area or like the back. And so something you need to watch out for when you sort of go shoe shopping. And also the material is very, very important, because on average, adults have foot sweats to the amount of like half a pint. And so if you can have like a leather lining, that would be more breathable and allow the sweat kind of like being sort of absorbed away, then that would suit better for your foot comfort and hygiene, avoid some of the problems. And so that's that. And in terms of padding, again, for ladies who like to wear high heels, it's very important to have a good amount of padding. I'm sure I don't have to say that, but be careful. Some shoes have like quite thin outsole as well, which means when you walk on sort of concrete floor, that you don't have enough kind of shock absorption, and you will feel like after a while of walking that the ball of your foot here will be burning and very, very sore. So I know a lot of ladies, what they do is they use these kind of like jelly inserts, and they put it inside the shoe under the ball of the foot. It could be a temporary solution and give you the relief you want, as you want it under the ball of the foot. But be careful, it also obviously take up space in your toe box. And so if your toes already kind of fitted quite snug, by having that extra kind of insert inside would mean that you will be experiencing sort of pressure from the top of your toe box. So just be careful with that. So what we do at Soli is we use memory foam sort of insole. If you can see, if I like sort of press on this and release it, you can actually still see the dent of my finger. And so this would be highly recommended if you can find it in the shoe that you buy. Very sort of soft and make your feet feel like you're stepping on pillows, basically. Right. Another thing in terms of lining is I'll use this as a demonstration. So for sandals, usually you have like all these straps to kind of hold your feet in place in the shoe. They can be quite irritating on your foot as well, because of imagine all the pressure and sort of strength are kind of distributed among like only the few straps you have here, and so at the end of the day, leather can still be quite hard on skin. And so what we use here, you probably can't see it very well in the camera, is we use this kind of felt like kind of material. It's a bit like suede when you touch it, and so this is much smoother when you have it on the skin, and very helpful to reduce kind of pressures and blisters. One other thing that we use as Soli is again, like we use trainer lining for shoemaking. I don't know if you can see it very well. So this is also adding to the breathability of your shoe, and it's very soft, very soft, and so it's something quite innovative that we do as a company. That's obviously like if you can have fashion shoes to have the comfort equal to trainers kind of feel, that would be amazing. Okay, so Okay, I think before I go into questions, I'm also gonna just touch on quickly the heel height. So obviously, heels plays a big part in terms of the comfort of your shoes, and the truth is not all sort of flats are comfortable, and not all high heels are uncomfortable. And so we often recommend the most optimal heel height is 2 inch, mainly because when you walk, there's a natural sort of lift of your heel. So when you take a step, it tends to be sort of your heel hits the ground first, and then you slowly translate the body weight onto the forefront of your foot. So your heel would lift up to this angle is 2 inch. So if you have a heel height that's 2 inch, that basically means that your heel wouldn't need or have little reason to raise at all, and without messing up the weight distribution on your foot. Whereas if you have like much higher sort of heel, then basically your foot would be walking more vertically, and so you wouldn't have as much sort of weight bearing on your heel, and so most of your weight would be here. So this is where it's even more important to have the right amount of padding when you wear high heels, and just make sure that you're not creating too much of problems on your joints here. Okay. Lastly, just tiny bit about the shoe care, because again, this affects the fit as well. You will have like a period of time that you feel like your shoes are properly broken in and molded on your feet, and you absolutely attach them. It's like the most important, the most comfortable shoes that you have in your closet. And but slowly, because more frequent wear means that the leather might not have enough time to kind of dry out from your natural foot sweats, and so we do advise you to kind of give it a day or two after every day of your wearing, and just so the leather would have a chance to kind of dry up and retain its kind of strength, regain its kind of elasticity, go back to the shape it sort of it has. But if you continuously wearing it without much of care, your leather and the fabric might just break and get worn out much quicker. And so what happens is like the shoes are one of those things, it's not getting better when it gets older, and so the fabric will eventually sort of lose its strength and elasticity. So the shoes could even sort of shrink in some sort of situation, and then you don't get enough support anymore on your feet. So I think that's all I have prepared. Let me just have a quick look if we have any questions from the audience. First question I've got here is, thank you for your advice. I was wondering how often should you measure your feet? Okay, that's a good question. So, although adult feet already grown to its sort of set size, but as we get older, our foot do spread, and especially women who's gone through pregnancy, where your sort of structure, the foot structure anatomy could sort of slightly change. So we do recommend you to get a sort of a foot resized every couple of years. Just make sure that you're not wearing the wrong size shoes, and avoid any sort of unnecessary problems. Okay, so next question. I'm wondering, when I opt for a made-to-measure shoes, what are the main features I can get to make my shoes fit comfortably? Right, so I think I've mentioned some of these features we've touched on. So for example, these sort of trainer linings is optional. I mean, like some people still prefer leather. We can do that as well. And the truth is, leather is it's more sort of elastic compared to these fabrics or trainer lining. But this is softer, and maybe leather has more durability as well. So there's the built-in heel grip that we use to kind of relieve the pressure on your heel. And this particular shoe also have a arch support, if you can see. Because some people might have a little bit of higher arch, so having this bit raised up could help you to also take up a bit of like sort of body weight, and so just to kind of relieve the sort of pressure at the the ball area here, will be slightly easier to walk in. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Next question. I get blisters at the back of my feet. What can I do to resolve this? Right, so gosh, it depends on what's the cause of this blisters. So like I said, it could be the counter being too high. If that's the case, then maybe use a shoehorn or something. Try to kind of like soften the rim here, and to kind of make it easier. On your skin here, on the tendon. But if it's inside of your heel, I know like lots of girls like to use these kind of like gel pad and sort of put it inside. But obviously, like these things are not permanent fix. It could give you because some people have like a bit of a hump on their heel, and I suppose that could be quite an irritable kind of area. And similar to your big toe joints here, this is another quite sensitive area if you look at the foot anatomy. And if it's sort of constantly sort of irritated, then you will find this hump and blister get bigger and bigger, which is not great. And so, by putting these gel pads, it could help to release it, but just be careful, like, it might also ease into the length of your shoes, because obviously, like I said, one size is 6 to 7 millimeters, or half a size is 3 mil roughly, and this could be easily 2 mil. So that's the kind of difference you'll be looking at, potentially half a size shoes. Okay, I hope that sort of answers your question. Another one we have here. How long do I have to wear a shoe to make sure it's a good fit for my shoe? This is a very difficult question to answer. Really depends. Obviously, if they're made to measure, then supposedly you don't need any time to break them in at all. They're supposed to be made to fit your feet and will be, you know, comfortable by default. But if you get like off the shelf kind of shoes, and depending on the style and how mismatched your shoes feet are to the shoes, you know, you're gonna have to like sort of really put up with the pain to change shoes, and so this is really like sort of different case by case. Depends on how much of difference there is, and perhaps, like I said, some of the tricks that you do, like to stretch a shoe or put inserts in, could help to reduce the time that it takes for the shoes to mold on your feet. Okay. Another question. What are the dangers to your feet with shoes that are too big? Okay, so I guess the main problem is if the shoes are too big, then they don't really support your foot very well. And as much as annoying sometimes, like, especially when you wear heels, the shoes will be constantly like slipping off your foot. And that amount of friction, again, like by just moving up and down while you walk, is another cause to, have blisters on the heel. Yeah, so it doesn't stay on your foot very well, and then, like I said, like the toe angle is not going to be aligned with your foot, and so it causes like a balanced sort of a weight sort of distribution on the shoe, and again, so it would cause like sort of a potential sort of damage on your big toe joints here, and the bad posture could potentially long term cause your sort of knee pain, back pain, and again, like in terms of friction, it's not just going to be on the heel. It will be the other areas as well, like as your foot sort of moves in and out, different places kind of like be very wobbly when you walk, and if it doesn't stay on very well, then also if it's the heel, then there could also be a danger to like sort of twist your ankle and sort of and hurt your feet. So definitely avoid buying shoes that's too big. But I appreciate sometimes you just don't know, and sometimes when your feet sort of swell throughout the day, when you try the shoes on in the shop and then it fits okay, but then the next day when you put them on again, it doesn't fit again. And so, what can I say? Maybe you just use these inserts and put it in and out, depending on the day, time of day that you wear the shoes, and sort of adjust them slightly accordingly. Okay, so the next question, from your experience, what is the most common mistake people encounter when it comes to a fit? I mean, a lot of people think a snug fit is the best fit. I think that's the biggest sort of misperception. And sometimes, if it's too snug, it causes like unnecessary pressure on your toes and everywhere. And then also like, especially if it's a low heel shoe, when you walk, your foot have this like kind of natural foot forward extension sort of momentum. So that on average is about half a size, but it really varies from person to person. Like, it could be as much as one size, but obviously high heel doesn't have as much, because then you like I said, you basically work walking more like a vertical sort of angle. So you don't really need that much of allowance. So what I'm saying is, like, in low heel shoes, especially completely flat shoes, you do need to have at least half a size allowance for the shoes, for your feet to kind of like move forward every step you take. Otherwise, you will feel like at the end of the day your toe tip will be hitting at the end of the shoes and causing discomfort. Okay, so right, I think that's all the questions we have. Oh, okay, that's all the questions we have. Sorry, let me just share our contact details. If you do have any other questions coming up later, you can contact us. And I'm just bringing up our email address, and this is our website. And like I said, we have a lot of different sort of shoe style, different materials, and we have our fitting experts available. If you do have any questions in terms of fitting, then we can, based on your measurements, then we can come up with the sort of recommendations for the kind of style and sort of fit for you. Right, okay. That's it from us, and do stay tuned. Next week we have the celebrity podiatrist sort of talking to us. So it's Thursday, 5 p.m. if you're available, and we do have some other amazing guest speakers that are lined up and talk about various of like sort of shoe design and materials, and so stay tuned, and we look forward to sort of seeing you soon again. Bye bye.